Hello there and welcome along to our cooking demo this evening. So this is a cooking demo of some nice, tasty and nutritious meals. So if you're cooking along, watching the recording, just please get in touch with me at any stage. My name's Ciara and you have my contact details on the recipe sheets. So this is a Cooking Connects Cancer for young adolescents and I'm delighted to be taking part in this evening. So I'm going to make a start. If you're cooking by recording, you'll see there's an order of work there. And that will just, if you want to cook everything at once, that will just keep you help you stay on track. If you're watching it by recording, you can always pause as well and just kind of catch up with me if I do happen to go too fast. So I'm going to make a start and I'm going to follow that order of work, and that's the step-by-step that I'll be doing this evening. So I'm going to start by making a little red onion pickle. So this is for the beef tacos. And I think we all love beef tacos. I think tacos are just one of those things nowadays that everyone just adores. So there's a number of things that you can put into it, and then a number of toppings. So this is just one of the toppings. When I come to the tacos in a while, I will give you a few more ideas for what you can include in them. So there's my red onion peeled, and I'm just going to, I'll only do half this because I have some I made earlier. It's all chef's day, some I prepared earlier, but I'm slicing this nice and thinly, okay? So nice thin rings. Just watch your fingers when you are chopping, obviously. So the safest way to chop is something on a flat surface, but then you don't get the nice rings here, okay? But the safest way is always have something on a flat surface so that you don't get your finger. And then I just keep my hand, I like my fingers well back from the blade, okay? But I'm not getting the nice rings there that I did at the start. So that was what I was aiming for there, the nice little rings. Okay, that will do me. So I'm just going to pop that into my bowl. And then I'm going to cover it with a little bit of vinegar. So about a tablespoon of vinegar. I'm using apple cider vinegar. And just when you're buying apple cider vinegar, just make sure it says with the mother somewhere on the bottle. That's the good stuff. Okay, so a tablespoon of the apple cider vinegar in there. And then I'm just going to put in a half teaspoon of salt and a half teaspoon of sugar. My eyes are beginning to sting a little from the onion. Okay, so a little bit of salt and a little bit of sugar. And this is just caster sugar, but whatever you have. Give that a stir and then leave it sit. And that will keep in the fridge nicely, just covered with cling film for a few days. So what will happen with this, it will go bright pink and it makes a lovely topping. So if you're into like taking photos of your food, this is always a nice color to pop on top of anything. Nice bright pink. I'll show you later. I'll come back to that later. Okay, so just stirred it there. And then I'll pop it to the side. Okay, now on to the most important bit, the dessert. Okay, so the dessert is little strawberry cheesecake pots. And I'll give you different variations for that. So we want to just make the base, which is going to be digestive biscuits mixed with melted butter. So you can crush the biscuits in a freezer bag or, with a rolling pin, or you can pop them into a food processor. But first I need to melt my butter. So I have 40 grams of butter there, okay, for the 12 biscuits I'm going to use. And I'm just going to go and melt that. I'm going to use the microwave to take about 30 seconds. And while that's melting, I'll go ahead and crush the biscuits. I shouldn't use the same knife I used for the onions. There'll be a funny taste of dessert. Hopefully not. Okay, so I'm going to pop 12 biscuits. So I'm doing it the lazy way, and I'm putting 12 biscuits into my little food processor. Would you mind getting me that? Okay, but if you didn't have a food processor, just pop them into a freezer bag and bash them with a rolling pin, just to crush them. And they don't need to be totally like perfectly crushed. Look, I'm pushing the limits on my food processor here. So if you have like big lumps of biscuit left, don't worry. Pop in the melted butter and I'll give it another little blitz just to mix it. But these are great little machines if you like cooking. These tiny little food processors are great. It saves you taking the big ones out of the press. You know, and sometimes it's just kind of hard to find all the different attachments and everything. So these baby ones are really good. Oops. Okay, so that's the butter mixed in with the biscuits. Okay. So now I'm going to pop that biscuit into my little serving glasses. Now you can use, it's quite nice to sometimes use espresso cups, or you just use small drinking glasses, or even just small little bowls, whatever you have. So I'm going to do the 4 of them, and then I'm also going to do these because it's a nice way of, you know, bringing it with you for appointments or like to school or a picnic, just to make it into little tubs. So this should serve about 6. You might get 8 out of it if you're, or if you're very into your desserts, you could divide it between 4. You pop the biscuit down the bottom. So sometimes in with the biscuit, I put a few nuts like pecans or walnuts. And that's quite nice. This is a variation. And of course you could use a chocolate biscuit or like something like a bourbon is quite nice too. Because this, I'm going to top this in a while with strawberries, but you don't need to top it with strawberries. You can, you know, top it with something chocolatey or. Okay, so biscuits are in the little serving dishes. And then with the back of the spoon, I'm just going to press that down. Now, it doesn't have to be compact in any way. It's just so I want to make room for the rest. Okay, so just give it a little pat down there with the back of the spoon. Okay, and I'm going to get that, just pop them to the side for a moment, and we'll get cracking with our strawberries. So I'm going to get my strawberries now, and I'm going to pop them into a pot. Now I need to cut them up a bit. They're quite large. So I'm going to take the green part off. Okay, and just even cut them in half, or just roughly chop them half or quarters, depending on the size of them. They're going to go into a pot, and we're like making a jam here. So it's like a very kind of light jam. It's not going to be set. And that's just going to be drizzled over the creamy mix in a while. So we need to get these into the pot with some caster sugar. Strawberries are getting better and better every day. If you didn't like strawberries, you could use raspberries. Or so if I put some pecans in with the biscuits, like I was saying, sometimes I then just swirl a bit of salt caramel through the creamy mix, and then I just chop up loads of pecans and put them on top instead of the strawberries. It's quite nice. I forget how much caster sugar. 30 grams. So that's 250 grams of strawberries, and I'm just going to put 30 grams of caster sugar in there, which is just 2 tablespoons. Okay, so it's just the sugar and the strawberries in the pot. I'm going to get that onto the heat and get out a spoon or spatula. And you only need to be careful here for a minute or so until the sugar melts. So sugar is a wet ingredient. You'll often see it in kind of in recipes, and it's with the wet ingredients. That's once it melts, once it heats. And once it melts here, you're safe. It's just when it's sometimes it sticks inside the pot and it can start to smell like candy floss a bit. And it's just once it melts and once the strawberries start leaking a bit of their juices, you can leave the pot alone. Just let them simmer away then for a couple of minutes. Not that the smell of candy floss is bad, it's actually quite nice. Okay, so we're just going to stir that around and we're just going to leave that for a few minutes and I'll stir it every now and then. Okay, so we'll have nice kind of warm, chunky strawberries to drizzle over the creamy mix in a while. Now, just to keep going with this, we need to get our cream and our mascarpone from the fridge. Okay, so this is the mascarpone. This is actually a cheese, but it's used in both savory and sweet dishes. It's quite thick. So sometimes it's a nice idea just to get that into your bowl and give it a mash around. If you remember, you could take it out of the fridge like about 20 minutes before you want to use it. And that will just help soften it a bit so that it's easier to work with. And we're using this in the soup recipe too. So if you're doing it again, making the soup and this, you could just make kind of half the dessert portion, like, and then just save a little bit for the soup. Okay, so see, it's quite thick. I'm just going to give it a bit of a stir before I add in the cream. Okay, and then I'm going to pop in some cream. So it's just 4 tablespoons of cream. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 big splashes will do. Don't need to be too exact here. And then I'm going to pop in some icing sugar. Better wash the vinegar off my spoon. So 3 tablespoons of icing sugar. A lot of people say you should sieve icing sugar, but I don't. The lumps will work themselves out. So that's 3 tablespoons of icing sugar. We just got a good stir in there. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is just work out any of the lumps from the mascarpone. So I'm glad I gave it a bit of a stir first. Now, if you had an electric mixer, you could whisk this up. Okay, just be careful because it turns thick quite quickly. Okay, so that's just the mascarpone, the cream, and the icing sugar. Just give my strawberries a stir. You see them there? See that? So they're beginning to leak out all their juices, break down a small bit. You can give them a bash with the spatula if you like. Okay, so this is just your like base mix. Okay, so this is the mascarpone, the cream, and the sugar. And you could add anything to this. Now I'm going to add some lemon zest to it. If you don't have a zester, don't worry, you could just add some lemon juice. Or but you can flavor it in loads of different ways. So sometimes I would put in some vanilla, so just vanilla bean paste, and then it tastes like a nice warm ice cream. And sometimes I'll put in some lemon curd or lime curd. Or as I was saying, you could swirl through some sort of caramel. Now, when you're zesting a fruit, it's just the colored part of the fruit. You don't go down to the pith. The pith can taste quite bitter. Okay, you mightn't have one of these, and if you do, be careful because they give you nasty cuts. Okay, so that's the lemon zest. I'm going to put in a little bit of juice as well. I'm not going to put in the full juice. I'm just going to put in the juice of half. Give it another stir there. And then we're going to get this on top of our little dishes. Try not to get the glass. It's hard. I should spoon it in with the smaller spoon. But this is such a tasty little dessert. You can make it the night before you want it too, so it doesn't have to be made I'm gonna have to change to a smaller spoon. I'm thinking of the washing up here. But yeah, we'll keep quite nicely in the fridge for a few days. I'm gonna turn off my strawberries now before I finish that. So that's how they look now. So they smell a bit like strawberry jam. Nice. Popping them to the side, they need to cool down a little bit. I'll go back to my little desserts here. Don't worry if you get the edge of the glass. You can either wipe it, but sure, the strawberries are going to cover it anyway. And just spread that out so they look like a more traditional cheesecake now. It's a very easy way of making something that's like a cheesecake, but just the normal cheesecake is a bit more hassle. Spatula. It's one thing I cannot survive without in the kitchen is a spatula. Okay, so the pots are almost filled. I just tidy them up a bit. You get the idea anyway, so I won't spend too long tidying them up. So if you're like me now, you've got a bit around the edge of the glasses, just get a little bit of kitchen towel if you want and just clean that off. If you just want them absolutely perfect. Okay, so any little smudges will take off. These are from IKEA, these little glasses, and they're actually lovely for desserts. I'll just clean off one. Yeah, so that it looks, rather than having you watch me clean off loads. Doesn't matter about those little ones. Oh, here, I'll do a quick job on these. I just can't not. Okay, now I'm gonna get these into the fridge. And while we're waiting for the strawberries to cool down, okay? And we'll come back to them at the end and finish them. And the next thing to do is, I think, to start the onion for the soup. Now, this soup is great. It tastes a bit like cream of tomato soup, if you like that. If you haven't tried something like this before, give this a go. This is a favorite here in this house. Clean as you go. I'm quite a messy chef, as they all tell me here. Is that right? I always start like I always start clean and then just all goes out the window in a few minutes. I'll do a quick little wipe down and then we're going to start the onion for the soup. So the onion I have chopped before, okay? Now it's one of the last things I chop before it starts cooking. It's just not great to leave the onion chopped and sitting around for too long. It's just, well, not only does it kind of smell out the place, but it just absorbs, I think, a little bit of bacteria stuff. So I like to just chop it last. And like if I had any left over, I just throw it straight in the bin then. Okay, so let's move on. Isn't that dessert so quick? Like it's so quick and you can vary it in a few different ways and always goes down well. Okay, so we're going to go back to the soup now. Tomato, basil, and mascarpone soup. I'm going to turn on the heat underneath my pot. I'm going to get a little bit of oil. So I say rapeseed oil. You could use olive oil or rapeseed oil or coconut oil. I just don't like to heat extra virgin olive oil, okay? It just burns at quite a low point. So I'm going to just put in a little, we're all quite heavy-handed with oil. Like it's just like, oh yeah, throw in loads into the pot. You only need a small little bit. I say a tablespoon in the recipe, but even half a tablespoon. And that's rapeseed oil. And just give that a little bit of heat. And then I'm going to put in the onion. So I have one onion here, which I've just roughly chopped. And then with the onion, I'm going to put a little pinch of salt. And the salt will help draw out the moisture in the onion and help it sweat down. And then it will just make a nicer, sweeter taste to the onion. You could let that, if you can let that cook for about 10 minutes without burning, you'll get a lovely flavor of your onion, like from your onions. And whatever you do, just don't let the onion burn. A lot of recipes will say soft but not colored, which is exactly where you want it to be. Just the veg is going soft, but it's not getting any brown on it. Okay, so the longer you can leave it in the pot without browning, the better. But I just don't have the patience for that. So I only ever give it 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, so just make sure it doesn't burn. If it's burning, you just need to turn the heat way down, or you might have a little bit, you mightn't have enough oil in there. And it's not that you need more oil. You could even put in a splash of boiling water if you think it's cooking too quickly. Right, so I'll let that cook away. I'm going to keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't burn. And I'm going to make some avocado puree to go with the tacos. So we're making the tacos, we're making the toppings as we go. Just while we're waiting for other things. Whew, avocados are flying around the place. Now you can either mash them or you can put them into the food processor that I use for the biscuits. I hope now these are nice. Always get, we always seem to be unlucky with our avocados. Oh, not too bad. Okay, so I cut them in half around the center. Other people cut them like around the long way. I cut them the other way. And then you can just press the avocado and the seed will pop out. Oops. Okay, just press that and the seed pops out. They're not too bad. Great. Okay, so keep an eye on your onion. Give it a stir. Turn down the heat if you want. You hear it sizzling when you first put the onion in, and then you can turn down the heat a bit so it's just kind of cooking more gently. And I'll take out any little bruised bits from the avocado. To be honest, when I'm doing this, I use frozen avocado a lot, which is sometimes hard to find, but if you can find it, it's great for something like this. Just defrost it and then use it as normal. It's great. These are a tiny bit hard, actually. Okay, so I'm going to mash them now with a fork. So I say an avocado puree, but it's similar to a guacamole. I'm not going to put any red onion or tomato in. You could chop up, you could put red onion and tomato in if you wanted, or you could put in some jalapenos. Oh yeah, say a few jalapenos. I'm going to put in a little bit of coriander. Now some people hate coriander, so if you're one of those people, just leave it out. I don't have very much here actually. Keep an eye on my onions. So we all like coriander here, but some people don't. So I'm just chopping in a little bit of fresh coriander. And take out you can eat the stalks of the soft veg or the soft herbs, no problem, but I'll take it out for a moment. Okay, so that's the coriander. And that's some lime juice. I just love limes. Now I'm going to pull those onions slightly off the heat. I don't want them to burn. After me telling everyone not to let them burn, then I'm let them burn. Okay, so I've put in 2 avocados. Now I say a big handful of coriander. That's hardly a big handful, but as much as you like, or leave it out altogether if you want. Okay, so it's the lime. And then some jalapenos. Now jalapenos are up to you, okay? So they're quite spicy. A lot of people don't like the heat from chilies, but the flavor is so nice of things. If you can tolerate even a few just for flavor, They're really, really give a great flavor. And sometimes for like a really quick taco sauce, I mix a bit of the juice from these jalapenos with a bit of ketchup and mayo and mustard, the hot dog mustard, and a little bit of this jalapeno juice, and that's really nice. You could drizzle that over your tacos or nachos. I'm just chopping up the few slices of jalapeno that I took out there and get them into my dish. I'll come back and I mash this in a while. I'll stick to the plan here. Okay, so back to the soup for a minute before those onions burn. Okay, so they're soft but not colored. You see there? Okay, and in there now I'm going to add the garlic. So the garlic I have grated. I grate my garlic and I keep it in the fridge for up to a week. So you want a couple, so that is probably there for nearly a week now. And it kind of goes the color, but that's okay. A lot of recipes say add the garlic in with the onion, but I find it burns much quicker than the onion. And again, it's not very nice when it burns. It kind of takes on a bitter taste. A little bit of salt and pepper. So I'm seasoning as I go. And then I'm going to put in a couple of tins of chopped tomatoes. When I'm making this now, I don't follow any recipe. I just put in whatever I can find. As long as you have the tomatoes, even if I don't have basil, I'll go ahead with this. Okay, so 2 tins of tomatoes. And then see it says 250 ml of vegetable stock. So usually that would be half a vegetable stock cube. Splash myself. Okay, so I've been seasoning as I go. So I'm only going to put in half the stock cube and then 250 ml of boiling water. So I tend not to make my stock into a jug beforehand because the stock cube will dissolve in the soup anyway. So it's just one less thing to have to wash up. If you don't have a measuring jug, then just use the tin, okay? So just a little bit of boiling water. So it's a half stock cube. Just these tins are 400 grams. So you're looking for just over half the tin of boiling water. Or cold water, it just takes a bit longer. Be careful because the outside of the tin can get a little bit hot. Okay, so this is 250 ml of boiling water to go with the stock cube. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of honey as well. And then just bring it up to the boil and let it simmer for about 10 minutes. That's all it needs. Doesn't need much time at all. And then we'll stir in some basil and mascarpone and blend it. Now the honey I'm putting in, because those tins of tomatoes are quite cheap. The ones I use are just Tesco's own brand. If you're using a really good quality tomato, you won't need the honey. But the honey will just reduce a bit of acidity from those cheaper tomatoes. And of course you could use sugar. I just tend to use honey sometimes. I used to have my own beans, but I don't anymore. So I'm back to Boyne Valley. But yeah, honey or sugar is just something to cut through the bit of acidity that might be in the tins of tomatoes. Okay, so that's everything in for the moment. We're just going to bring that up to the boil. Let it simmer for 10 minutes if you have 10 minutes. If you don't, 5 minutes will do. And then we'll put in the mascarpone and we'll put in some fresh basil and blend it all up. And it's a really, really good soup and made so quickly and easily. Okay, before I move on to frying up the beef, I just want to mash up my avocados. I can't remember now if I put salt in there. So yeah, I'm doing this by hand. You could throw it all into the blender, and I wouldn't, if you've made the biscuit base in that same blender, I wouldn't even wash it out. It's fine to just throw this in on top. You're not going, a few crumbs of biscuits won't hurt it. Another nice thing to put in here is a bit of Greek yogurt, or even natural yogurt. And of course you can put in some fresh chilies or chopped tomatoes, chopped red onions. And this is really nice. And this is also really nice for breakfast and just on toasted sourdough or something. I don't think I put salt in, so I'm gonna add a little bit of salt in. And then that is second thing ready for the tacos. Okay, so we have our red onions over here, and they're taking on a nice pink color now. And then we have our nice green color from the avocado. So that's the two of them. I'll just leave them aside for the moment. And we will move on again. I'm just pushing all the mess to the side. So you can't see it. It's great that way. One can see all the messes around me here. Okay, so what we want to do next is we want to I say heat wok. So we're going to fry the beef for the tacos. So a wok or a frying pan, whatever you have. Doesn't need to be a wok. And the dog is sneezing. We have a puppy and she's sneezing here. Okay, and then we're going to go on and cook the pasta. Okay, so we're going to get the beef into a frying pan or a wok and let that cook first. I'll swap them over, yeah. Okay, so a little bit of heat on my frying pan there. And then I'm going to add a little bit of rapeseed oil and the beef. So this is the beef. I say 700 grams. This is 600 grams, but whatever you have. And this is the lean beef. So just in the supermarket, just be aware, like you'll get beef percentage of fat, so anywhere from 3 to 20% fat. And I wouldn't really put anything higher than 10 into a frying pan. It just is too much fat swimming around the pan then. So what you use the higher percentage fat for would be like burgers or something on the barbecue or under the grill. But not so much into a pan. So a little bit of rapeseed oil again. My soup is just coming up to the boil there. And then I'm going to get in the beef. And I have something called a whacker. So which is this. It's just for breaking down the beef. But you could get the end of the spatula and just keep jabbing at it to break down that beef. It just makes life a little bit easier. Okay, so once it's broken down, we'll go ahead and pop in a little bit of salt and pepper. I know I give a measurement for salt and pepper, but I'll just put a little bit of salt in to start. And then we'll get all the spices in. So other things you can put into tacos, if you had leftover roast chicken, you could just shred that, or roast pork, or sometimes they'll boil up a couple of chicken fillets, maybe put 2 fillets into a pot of boiling water. Nothing else is needed. Just simmer them for about 20 minutes. Take them out and shred them with 2 forks, so you get nice stringy bits of chicken. And you don't need to add any flavor to them really, because you'll have the few extra toppings. You could put in some of the spices. If you want something really quick, pop a few, it's like Donegal catch or fish fingers into your air fryer or into the oven, and pop them into a taco, either taco shell, or I'm going to use the soft tacos. Okay, but fish fingers are really nice. And what you could do is mix some peas in with the guacamole. So defrost some peas, chuck them in the pot for a minute, and then mash them in with the avocado. And that's quite nice if you were doing like the fish finger ones. Yeah, so a few different ideas for tacos. Or prawns, quite nice. Okay, so I've just let that cook for about 3 minutes, and now I'm going to go and get all my spices and add them in on top. So I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of ground cumin. Okay, now these jars I replace every couple of months. So these ground spices. So if they're there for since you were born, then maybe time to replace them. Okay, so 2 teaspoons of the ground cumin. The ground spices lose the flavor really quick, and then you just don't get the same flavor from them. You start adding more in, and then your dish will taste a bit kind of sandy from all the spices. That's smoked paprika. Give that a smell if you haven't used it before. It smells a bit like chorizo, if you know what that smells like. It's different to the other paprika. It's got a smoky flavor to it. Then I say garlic powder. So this is garlic granules. Garlic granules or garlic powder are fine. How much of this do I say to put in? Teaspoon. But just don't use garlic salt unless you take out some of the salt because it's quite salty. So garlic powder, garlic granules, and then chili powder. It's up to you how much chili powder you put in. I'm just finishing the end of that one. And this is the one I usually use, the Kashmiri chili powder. See that? This is kind of middle of the range. If you don't like too much spice, just put in maybe half a teaspoon. If you like spicy things, put in a couple of teaspoons. Okay, so I'll put in, we like spice. But if you don't like spice, yeah, just try and include a small bit even. Putting in a little bit more salt. So I say a teaspoon of salt there and a teaspoon of pepper. I already put in a little bit at the start, so I'm just putting in a little bit more. And then I'm going to put in black pepper. So I did this for friends recently, and everyone liked it. And I actually made everything the night before, and then just it reheated really well. So I have this in a high heat now. And I really want to just make sure that all the meat is nicely browned. It should only take maybe about another 8 to 10 minutes to cook this through. Okay, just don't forget about the little bits around the edges. It's great. It's a great instrument. Funny name though, whacker. Okay, so not only am I breaking down the mince here, I'm just bringing in anything that might look a bit raw from the edges and mixing all the spices around evenly too. Okay, and then just spread it out, let it cook for, I'll stir that every couple of minutes and let that cook for maybe another 7 or 8 minutes. Okay. Now I want to move on and I want to cook the pasta. This is for the next dish. So this pasta dish is nice because it's nice either warm or cold. Soup is simmering away there. Beef is cooking away. Now that everything's like bread and everything's mixed together and the mince is broken down, I'm going to turn that down to more of a medium heat, okay? And just let it cook away then. And I need to get a pot of boiling water for my pasta. So I'm going to use spaghetti, but you could use any pasta here. So whatever you like. And I'm trying to find a fairly large pot. I'll use this one. And fill it with boiling water then. And we get the pasta on to cook. Okay, so pot of boiling water on there for the pasta. Still cleaning. Kind of. There's a mess everywhere. Okay, so I'm using spaghetti. Yeah, you can use whatever pasta shape you like. I should use whole wheat, but I much prefer white pasta, the brown pasta. So if you're like me, you might be the same. And then, well, for the four of us here, I usually put on about half a bag or box of pasta, which is about 250 grams. This is great for lunch boxes too, like or if you've any left over. Okay, so about a half a box there. I'll give my meat a quick stir. If you find it sticking to your pan, this is quite a newish pan. If you find your meat is sticking to your pan, just add in a splash of water with it. It will dry out anyway. So we don't want this. Well, you can have it runny if you want, but it kind of goes everywhere. It's better if it's dry going into the taco so it doesn't squish everywhere. Okay, get your pasta then into the pot. And we'll let that cook. So you should just let the pasta cook to whatever it says in the box. Just don't overcook it. Quite often I'll cook up a pot of pasta and I'll just leave it in the fridge for about 4 days. And as I need it, then I just put it into boiling water. So if you want to get ahead, you just kind of pre-cook it. In restaurants, we used to always pre-cook it in the morning, and then as the orders come in, you just pop if someone ordered fusilli carbonara, you just pop the fusilli into boiling water for 30 seconds. And so it's great. Yeah, it's great to have it ready, and it keeps quite nicely in the fridge for about 4 days. Once you can get it into the pot. Struggling here, my pot's not huge. I hate breaking spaghetti. It will go in eventually, once the bottom softens. Okay, let me see what is next. We're going to add the basil and the mascarpone to our soup. We're going to blend that then, and we're going to be finished with that one. We'll taste it and serve it. I'll get this pasta in first. It's like noodles. I hate breaking noodles. Okay, I'll pull this back over here for a minute. And in with that, I'm going to put the basil. So this is a bunch of basil from the supermarket. I did wash it. I don't always wash my herbs. I'm throwing in all the stalks and everything. And then I'm going to put in some mascarpone too. So about not even half a tub of mascarpone, just maybe a bit under half of mascarpone. Okay. There. So that's what I say, if you're just by one tub, you could maybe do two nice generous desserts and the pot of soup from the one tub of mascarpone. If you didn't have mascarpone here, don't worry. If you had a little bit of cream or cooked cream, that's fine. But sometimes I don't even put in the cream. I just blend it. It's not a cream of tomato soup. And sometimes I might even just put in a little bit of milk with it at the end. And then I also turn that tomato soup into a pasta sauce. So I just leave out I put in the stock cube, all right, the half stock cube, but I don't put in the water part. Then it's a nice thick sauce. My beef is almost ready. So yeah, it makes a really nice tomato sauce. And then if you're using it as a pasta sauce, if you're using it as a pasta sauce, it's nice to, if you like olives, to put in a few olives. So just leave out, the only thing you leave out is the water to make it into a pasta sauce. Oh my goodness, I'm really struggling to get this pasta into the pot. We are getting there. Okay, so once you get the mascarpone in, now you don't need to heat the mascarpone, but I just put it back on the heat for about a minute just to kind of blend it in a bit. You don't want to overcook the basil because you lose the nice freshness from it. I've turned my meat off there for a second just because it was in the way more than anything. It's definitely cooked, but you might need to give yours a bit more. I'm just mixing in that mascarpone and I'm going to blend it. But if you didn't put it back on the heat, it would just, your soup would be a tiny bit cold, but that's all. You might be making it to go in the fridge or freezer anyway. This freezes perfectly. Still trying to get. I'm going to add more boiling water to this pasta. So don't put salt or oil or anything into the pasta water. It's just the water. Salt is really, now gives a little bit of flavor. But the reason, like in restaurants, you put a heap of salt into the water is to, it really it's to change the boiling point. But you'd want to be putting in a good bit. So at home, people don't tend to as much. Right, I am going to blend up that soup. Pots everywhere. That's not too bad. Okay, so it's the soup back. And I have a stick blender here, which makes life easy rather than transferring it into the liquidizer. One of these, can you see that? So this is the stick blender. And I'm going to use that to blend the soup. Okay. Now I'll just leave that in there before I take it out, and I just want to taste it while it's still in there. I might need to add more salt and pepper, so just give it a little taste. And then see if it needs a little bit more salt. So I'm going to put in a tiny pinch more salt. A little bit of black pepper and give it another little whiz. Okay. And that should be perfect now. I hope you'll try making this. If there's anything you try tonight, because it's just so easy and it's so quick. And most people, I'd say, will really like it. Even my son who hates tomatoes, he likes this. And get into the bowl. So when you're ladling soup, can you see that? You lift up the ladle, but if you dip it back in, it stops it dripping. If you don't want it all down the side of your bowl. So just you see that you just lift it up, dip it back in, and it gives you a few extra seconds to get it into the bowl. If you're concerned about presentation. And this soup will keep in the fridge for about 3 days, but it freezes really well too. Right, so that's the soup done. The mince is done. I've taken my mince off. It's definitely cooked. So it's a little bit quicker than I had said in the order of work. So just check your mince. If you're not sure but it's sticking, just add a splash of water. I'm just going to stir. I'm going to stir my pasta here. Finally, it's all in the pot. And to this then, which is going to totally mess things up again, I'm going to add in some frozen peas. So I'm going to cook the veg in the same pot. There's no reason why you shouldn't. Saves you taking out more pots. So the peas are going to go in from frozen about 100 grams or so, or whatever you like of peas. Now this will bring down the temperature of the water again. So if you turn down the heat a bit, turn it back up again. It is getting dark, isn't it? Okay, you don't need to measure that. We're just guessing. You see it stopped at boiling again now, but we'll bring that back up to the boil. And then I've got asparagus. So this is the asparagus here. Now asparagus will break where they're meant to break, okay? So if you just hold the end and snap, the bottom end will break off, okay? And this bottom end is just really fibrous and woody. It's not very nice to eat, okay? So if you just break them all off, hold the bottom, they'll snap where they're meant to snap. And you discard those bottom bits. Of course, you could just chop off that end third if you wanted to. And then I'm going to cut these into smaller pieces. You okay? What's wrong? Oh, you're worried about the wire. Okay, so I'm going to just either into thirds or to halves. And get them into your pot too with your peas and your spaghetti. Now, if it grows above the ground, it always goes into boiling water with the lid off. Okay, so if you had a lid on the pasta, I wouldn't be putting the lid back on the pot now. It just will keep the nice green color of the veg. So if it grows above the ground, it goes into a pot of boiling water with no lid. Grows below the ground, it goes into cold water with the lid, like potatoes, if you're mashing potatoes, say, or anything like that. The challenge is figuring out where things grow. Okay, we're getting places. So I want to, next thing it says to check the mince. I know mine is ready, so just check yours. And then I'm going to warm the wraps. So these are wraps from, you won't get these ones in the supermarket. You'll have to go to a specialty store for these, either to an Asian store or most Asian stores that have a little Mexican section. But these are the ones from Tesco, the corn ones that I would use if I can't find them. Or sometimes I use the hard taco shells, but I feel like these are a little bit healthier than eating the taco shells can be. I like the idea of them, but I never really like the taste. Either the soft wraps, I think, are much nicer. Now you have to usually warm, well, you don't have to warm them, but these are kind of stuck together. But it's nice to warm them. So I'm just going to pop them onto a plate and give them about 30 seconds in the microwave. These are all stuck together. I'll just do 4. Now these big packs, there's 40 in this pack, and you're meant to use them within 3 days. So you'd want to know that you're going to eat them all, if not buy the ones in the supermarket. I'm going to get them on a plate and just get them into the microwave for 30 seconds to a minute. I'll pass that to my assistant. Thank you, Ronan. I'm going to skip the pasta bit next, and we're just going to jump ahead, and we're going to go on to finishing the cheesecake. So if you want to take them back out of the fridge, and we're just going to get the strawberries on top of them, and then they go back into the fridge. Okay, so a spoon on each to start. You can either leave it looking like that, or you can spread it out a bit on every last drop of this. Lovely. So you can spread it out again a bit with the spoon, or you can just leave it in the middle. Okay, I'm just going to leave one out to show you at the end. Which one? This one? This one? Up. There. So how they look now. And the rest of them can go back in the fridge then, and they'll keep nicely for a few days. The little tubs are cute. Okay, right, where are we at? I'm going to stir my spaghetti again. Spaghetti cooks really quickly. And then we'll just assemble a taco. We're nearly there. I know, I'm going to go a minute or two over. Okay, I'll just assemble one taco. So what I do is just put a little bit of beef on Puppy's now under my feet. She thinks I'm making her dinner. A little bit of beef. A little bit of avocado. And don't forget the red onion. Actually, I had one I made earlier, but this one's gone nice and pink now. It's got a lovely color, and it also makes it a bit like nicer to eat. A lot of people don't like the texture of red, like raw onion. If you wanted, you could put a little bit more coriander or a few jalapenos on the top. And then the other thing I might do would be just a little bit of dollop of sour cream if I have it, but usually I don't have it. So that's just one, okay? You'd be wanting to have about 4 of them for your dinner. But just to keep things moving here. That's the soup. And just be careful when you're moving the soup. You don't want to splash up the edges if you want it to look nice, because they're called like tide lines on the bowl, and I just think they look a bit grubby. So you want to pass your bowl really carefully, or else sometimes I bring the pot back up to the table and put the little tiny ladle up again just to fill up the tide lines. That's just being very fussy. Right, so I know my pasta is cooked. If you want to take a bit out of the pot and taste it for yourself, I'm going to drain that off and then just finish this pasta dish. Okay, so I've popped it into a colander and just let it drip dry there for a second, and then we need to add the fish. So this stuff is great. This is hot smoked salmon. Okay, it's sold in lots of different ways. Okay, so all the supermarkets sell it. Done, sometimes they call it barbecue smoked salmon. But what it is, it's salmon fillets. They taste cooked, but I'd say they taste smoked, but they've got the texture of cooked. So if you don't like the kind of raw texture of smoked salmon, then this is for you. And they're ready to eat straight from the pack. And just so easy to pop on top of things like on a salad or like plain risotto or something. They're really good. There it might be about $4.50 for 2. Okay, pasta is going back into the pot. And then we'll add everything else in. Okay, so there's the pasta. I know it's loads of steam now. I want to get a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in that. So extra virgin olive oil, I just keep for like dressing. So a couple of tablespoons of that. And then the lemon. Again, I want the zest of the lemon. So I did wash these lemons earlier because these are just the cheap wax lemons. So I washed them and then it just gives them a bit of a scrub. Again, if you don't have the zest, don't worry, just put in the juice. So between the juice, because it's acid, and the oil, makes a nice like a dressing. Yeah. And then the juice. It's handy because it catches the pips. You don't want to be trying to pull out the pips. Okay, so we need a little bit of salt and pepper on that too. And then we'll flake in the fish. And some dill. Now, dill is one of those herbs that not everyone's mad about too. So if you didn't have, I was going to use chives, but dill goes really well with salmon. So this is the dill herb here. And if you don't like dill, a few chives are nice, or a bit of parsley. Or nothing at all, because there's plenty of greens in there. that's the dill. And then the salmon has the skin on. So I take the skin off. I actually give that to the puppy. And just flake that in. Here, I'll go back to the big camera and I'm just flaking that into the pot then. I'm nearly at the end. If you are making these, please do get in touch if you have any questions, or if you can't find something, or oh God, sorry, the puppy. She's very loud when she barks. She's only started barking. Okay, so that's the fish is all gone in there. Am I on the big camera or the little camera? What? This just gives it all a bit of a mix around there. And then into your serving dish. So it's really nice warm and it's really nice cold. Just when you are spooning it out, make sure everyone gets a bit of everything. Sometimes all the good stuff falls to the bottom. No, I'll use my fingers just because I'm only feeding the family anyway. So that is that. Okay, so there are the 4 dishes there. So you have your tomato and basil and mascarpone soup. And then we have our beef tacos with a little bit of avocado puree and some pickled red onion. And then you have your hot smoked salmon and asparagus and pea spaghetti. And then your little strawberry cheesecake pots. So four recipes in just over an hour. So I hope you will use them. I hope you like them. And yeah, thanks so much for asking me to come along to do this. And thanks very much, everyone.